Welcome back to the Call in Our Shop podcast. I'm Austin, joined by Logan. We are back, episode 36 of our weekly podcast. We're almost, I just realized we're closing in on 52 weeks. We got only 15 more weeks or so before we get there. But this is our weekly podcast, posted every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Normally, we're joined by a special guest. Today, we will not have one, sorry. But we will have one next week. I promise you'll want to tune into that one. But we're going to talk about a lot of different things, all about the NFL. We haven't been talking about the NFL in a hot minute. But first off, Logan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, per usual. You know, as I've told people before, this is my second dose of Austin, and one day we do the morning baseball videos together, bright and early every morning. He's the first person I talk to, and on some days like today, he's a voice in the evening too. But I'm doing well as always. We have so much fun doing these podcasts because it's just, two friends, going back and forth. The baseball videos are a little bit more serious, right? We have to, kind of focus what we're doing. But I like this because this is just so organic. But how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Today's been a good day. Was down in Sarasota doing a little bit of walking around in the Florida sun. It's been a good day. I'm excited to talk about some NFL, and it's a lot. It's a lot more fun to do these podcasts. Well, it's just a different kind of wavelength to talk about things, and it's fun. Yeah. It's fun. The short MLB videos, we got to get straight to the point. But today we can have a little bit of fun, talk about some NFL, talk about some random things, see wherever the conversation goes. And while we don't have a special guest this week, if you want to go check out our previous episodes with some special guests, you definitely should go do it. Maybe one day we'll think about bringing on some of you guys onto the weekly podcast. So who knows? If you guys want to support us, download the podcast. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can go do that, and you can give us a good rating if you're feeling up to it on a Wednesday. This is posted every Wednesday. 10 a.m. Eastern time. Obviously, we record this on Tuesday nights. But Logan, we didn't have a ton of topics today. And given the playoffs in the NBA are just kind of starting, game one for the Heat Celtics is going on right now as we speak. Let's kind of talk about some NFL win totals. Let's talk about some NFL divisions. You kind of see if we can seek some value. We might have a futures bet for the NFL later on in a couple months, but today we're going to tackle just the NFC East or just the NFC. Then in a couple weeks, whenever we don't have a podcast guest, maybe something falls through, someone can't make it. We'll talk about the AFC then, but let's hop right in. Let's kind of hop into the NFC East, one of the weirder divisions in the NFL, obviously hosted by the Commanders, Cowboys, Eagles, and the Giants. In parentheses, you see on the screen all the different people that in the parentheses, you see a number. That number is their win total, or that is what it is on DraftKings at the moment. Some are more juiced than others, but majority of them were around minus 110. So not too terrible odds. But Logan, what sticks out to you when you look at this division? Because last year, obviously, the Cowboys did win it pretty convincingly, but what kind of sticks out at first glance?
Yeah, for sure. So Cowboys, being that double-digit, win total, that doesn't shock me all that much because they're number one America's team. So it means they get a lot of money on them too. Everyone expects the Cowboys to kind of have those expectations. But what's really interesting to me is the Eagles sitting at 9.5. So only a half win behind them is what's going to separate this division. So we've got tremendous high hopes, I guess, in Philadelphia for the Eagles with the addition of AJ Brown at that 9.5. Am I sold enough though on Jalen Hurts to hit that over? I don't think so. I would have a hard time laying whatever sort of odds to get Jalen Hurts to give me 10 wins.
Yeah, when I look at that Eagles line, we'll talk about them first. It is a high line. I wasn't expecting to see a 9.5 line. We have to think the NFL does have one extra game now, so a 10-7 record would cash that for them. But yeah, those Eagles did make the playoffs last year. They had a good run towards the end of the year. Granted, they didn't play a whole lot of good competition. Not saying the NFC East is necessarily the best teams in the NFL, but interesting to see them go up with this high line. Now, I'm excited. This is a team that I'm super excited to see because obviously, they got A.J. Brown now to pair with Devontae Smith, and that's truth. Let's be honest. The Eagles didn't have really much of a receiving core last year. They had Jalen Reagor, and Eagles fans just PTSD hearing the name Jalen Reagor come through their headphones. But I'm excited to see that Eagles team. What I'm looking for fantasy football. I'm really hoping. I feel like I always hope one year Miles Sanders is finally going to be that guy. But I swear every year I hope for him to be good, and then.
It's not his fault. The offense just wasn't designed around running the ball last year. You can't do anything with a limited amount of touches, and Miles Sanders wasn't given a whole lot of workload. So it's really interesting because to me, you set up Jalen Hurts and you set up those weapons like Devontae Smith, like AJ Brown, and even they still got Goddard, right? You've got a really solid pass. How do you set that up though in the NFL? Set it up through the run game a little bit, right? You have to run the ball. You have to keep the defenses honest. And I think what we saw in, kind of the beatdown playoff performance when Philadelphia did travel to Tampa Bay, the defense just pinned their ears back and said, all right, Jalen Hurts, we're coming for you. And you can't do anything about it. Just, you're not going to have any time to pass or anything. And we saw how that turned out for them. So you better hope that they get a more balanced attack, because if it's anything like last year, that's not good news. But I do want to talk a little bit. The Commanders is an interesting team a little bit, right? New name, new quarterback. I'm curious, what are your thoughts at that 8 total? Because I mean, is that sneaky? Is that a potential value play even?
I mean, it's hard to, pinpoint, here's the week they lose, win, because we haven't really checked out all their complete schedules. I'm just not sold on Carson Wentz. I mean, 8 wins is not asking for a lot. It's not. Trust me, it's not. I mean, 8-9 season, and you push this total. Just not sold on them a whole ton. Not sold on this defense. Now, could they fall into 9 wins? Yeah, it's not necessarily hard to win 9 games in the NFL. I mean, it's hard to win every single week, but you can fall into several wins. And, getting the Giants twice, which the Giants have a 7-win total. We'll talk about them in a second. But I'm not sold on this Commanders team. I just don't know what they're doing a whole lot. Terry McLaurin still in this contract, negotiations. Their defense, I don't know, Chase Young status. The team just seems weird put together. I still trust Ron Rivera. I think he's a good coach. You have a lot of experience with Ron Rivera, but I'm not sold. I mean, do you think they hit that total? Do you think they push it? Do you think they go way under?
No, I think they go under, and I was just trying to see if I could back you into a corner, trying to put faith in Carson Wentz, because I wanted to get you on camera. Yeah, I wanted to get you on camera saying you believed in him. Because truthfully, I mean, what is it with Carson Wentz? And this podcast, it's been well documented, how we were a little bit harsh on him for sure. But when you can't stay healthy, and when you are healthy, you choke a very winnable game that your team definitely needed. I mean, you've got a massive weight on your shoulder, and you can't help but think, the Commanders are going to look at any sort of sign of danger from Carson Wentz and say, oh, he ain't that guy. And they're looking for it. That's the problem with what he did in Indianapolis last year. Is now it's the book's kind of written. He's got this choke artist narrative. He's got this can't stay healthy. So he's got a tremendous uphill battle. Now that could propel him into a great season. It really could, because we've seen Carson Wentz at that MVP level prior to his injury. We've seen it, but I wouldn't bank on it at all. And honestly, the Giants sitting at that 7, I'd like to mash the under. I just that team is buns from the top to the bottom. I don't know where we're finding those 7 wins. So you just gotta hope and pray that it's the NFL and they win on some lucky field goals week in and week out.
Yeah, I'm going to come out and give a bold prediction. I'm going to give you a plus 240 play I'm really considering. Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC East. And I want to talk about it. It's not maybe a pro Eagle, although I do think their team's going to be pretty decent this year. I think Jalen Hurts will continue to get better. And that addition of A.J. Brown, I think, is going to go leaps and miles. They're a first-year head coach, right? It was Nick Sirianni. That was his first year or second year. I don't remember. But either way, I'm more of an anti-Cowboys. And I know the Cowboys have a large fan base. They're already in the comments, already mashing their keyboard. But my thoughts on the Cowboys, I wouldn't take their under necessarily at 10, just because I think it's good push potential. But I think the Cowboys are doing a big regression here this year. Now, obviously, Dak Prescott should be better after becoming, a year post-surgery. But that team got so lucky with turnovers that I just think I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. I just don't think you can duplicate getting that many turnovers. I mean, Trayvon Diggs had a ton of them. Can he duplicate having that many interceptions again? I don't think so. And so a team that relied so much on, let's be honest, the Cowboys defense, not all that good last year, but they forced a lot of turnovers, kind of kept their numbers in bounds. But if you can't get those turnovers, they're going to give up a ton of points. And I just think they're going to fall back a little bit. And could we see the Eagles maybe win this division with 10 or 11 wins? I wouldn't be too surprised. I think it's great value at plus 240. Man, maybe I'm supporting your hometown team over there, but I'm around with the Eagles plus 240. I think it's too good a value on FanDuel. I like it.
Adopted hometown. I'm not originally from Philly, but how were they getting so many turnovers? Well, it was their divisional opponents. When you're playing Danny Dimes, aka Danny Turnovers, and he's just gifting you the ball. When you're playing now Carson Wentz, sorry, Carson, I'm going to come out and say you're probably going to have several turnovers. Jalen Hurts, he's a little bit reckless with the ball too. This is an opportunistic defense for sure. And I actually like what the Cowboys did this season, just saying, we're gonna keep some continuity, right? They've retained their coordinators. They've returned a lot of starters from last year's team. So they're trying to run it back in essence. And as long as they just don't do some, boneheaded clock management, which they're always liable for. I don't love them at like plus 100-ish to win the division. I was just looking at my phone. That's what I see them as. I don't like them for that value. Like I would just rather take the shot in the dark on the Eagles with you. I agree, but I think you're a little too harsh on the Cowboys. We need to see them choke and collapse before we can hop on them there. But I get it.
No, that's pretty fair. Let's move on to the next division. Let's talk about the NFC West. We'll go East then West. This division's obviously had a lot of turnover. Now we have the Seahawks. Last year, you're taking their win totals. It was probably 10.5. Russell Wilson's out of here. It's now 5.5. They got Drew Lock and whoever else they probably might suit up at QB. So that's an interesting one. 49ers, no idea what they're doing right now. Now, obviously, we look at their odds, and maybe the books know something, but the 49ers plus 185 to win the division, the Rams plus 140. I don't know if they have a big disparity in terms of strength of schedule, but interesting to see their over-unders, right? 10 and 10.5. And then the Cardinals, obviously, returning with Kyler Murray, supposedly. Who knows what his contract salary negotiation is going to be. But anything stick out to you in this division? Because it's a little bit different, a little less firepower than we're normally used to without Russell Wilson there.
For sure. Seeing the Seahawks out of contention, right? With 5.5 win total, you're gonna be a punching bag for a lot of the league. But it's weird. At 5.5, it's just intriguing because you're like, is there enough heart and whatever in Seattle still? I think they might, and I actually do think they can hit that over. Oddly enough, Seahawks will be annoying this year. They're gonna be that annoying team that everyone's betting against, throwing their opponent in parlays, and the Seahawks just win games that they don't not supposed to, right? That's what I'm calling right now in May of 2022 already. But and then I'm also looking at the Cardinals. Look, Kyler Murray, love you, but I mean, you've got a lot of bad storylines going your way. So to say that right off the bat, the Cardinals, I can believe that they could get 9 wins. I don't know, right? Like DeAndre Hopkins, right? We haven't even talked about that. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is missing first. What did you say?
6. I think 6.
Yeah. So boom, there you go. His top target out right there. That doesn't help Kyler Murray. We'll meet scrambling in the pocket. And so this really does, to me, come down to the 2-horse race of 49ers Rams. And dare I say, I like the Rams. I do. They're running it back, sort of. I mean, they definitely got better with Allen Robinson. I like that addition a lot to pair with Cooper Kupp. I mean, I love me some Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see this line so much. It's like, what do the books know? Like, is something going to happen with Stafford? He's just randomly going to get suspended or something? Like, I'm with you. I think the Rams are the front runner for this division, and I don't think it should be the value that we're seeing right now. I feel like it should be more close to the Cowboys-Eagles value, where it's like plus 100-ish to plus 240 than it is plus 140, plus 185. Now, I got to give credit to the 49ers. They're a great team. We don't know their QB situation still at this moment. May 17th at 8:29 p.m. They currently have still Jimmy G on the roster, but will he be on the roster come training camp, come preseason? No one knows, and I don't know necessarily if they can really trade him at this rate. So I think Jimmy G is going to be there. I imagine they go to Trey Lance, who I'm not the biggest fan of, and asking a second-year guy to just come in and win the division against the reigning Super Bowl champs. Kind of tough task to ask for, and I just think this. You see the Rams. Way too talented of a team, unless their strength of schedules are just completely way off. And obviously the Rams, we have a doozy on what is that? That's the Thursday night opening game, right? Rams versus Bills. Yeah. That's going to be an awesome game. So I just think they're just too good of a team, too good just defensively, offensively. I would ride with you with the Rams. Now, I am curious to see Allen Robinson's fit in this offense. Now, obviously he's going to take over that Robert Woods role, but there's no chance Cooper Kupp can duplicate what he did last year, right? To duplicate what he did is going to be literally next to impossible. Yeah. But who says no, right?
Well, especially all the touchdowns. Like you want to talk about regression. Like Cooper Kupp's going to regress. I'm sorry, that's a numbers play, right? You've had a historic season for sure. Also, talking about regression in this division, though, I kind of think it's the 49ers defense a little bit. For all the points you kind of talked about, the Dallas Cowboys, how you think they're going to regress. I think the 49ers are going to take a big step back just because they look at how they won a lot of games last year. They were close games, arguably coin flip games. They were grit and grind, we're just going to defense, punch you in the mouth type games like that. But let's just say, because it is the NFL, a few injuries, a few mishaps don't go their way. I think actually the 49ers really got lucky last year. I think they were kind of the lightning in a bottle. They had Deebo Samuels, putting the team on his back. He was wearing the Superman cape in the playoffs. And I just, that to me is so hard to capture 2 years in a row. So I'm actually the best bet to me to make out of this whole division would be 49ers win total under, just because I think, they're going to play some good divisional competition for sure.
Yeah, and like you touched on earlier with the Cardinals, they're going to be an interesting team to watch because I feel like we got Cliff Kingsbury on the hot seat this year. Yeah. I think it's like perform now or kind of get out of here. I know he obviously won, got them to the playoffs. Obviously, the second half of the year wasn't exactly what they wanted, and I think it's a big year for Kingsbury. I know, NFL, some teams are content with a winning season, get into the playoffs and get bounced. But I think the Cardinals owners have more aspirations. They wouldn't have went out and traded for DeAndre Hopkins. They wouldn't have traded for and got J.J. Watt. They wouldn't have done all these moves to improve the team if they didn't believe in, improve it. They wouldn't have went and got Hollywood Brown, who's a guy we haven't even talked about either. Hollywood Brown now on their team. So I'm a little bit, if I were to pick an over-under in this division, kind of like the Cardinals over the 8.5 wins. Now, I don't necessarily think they come out and win 12. I just don't see that. But asking a team that has this much talent, I know they won up DeAndre Hopkins for a little bit, but this was a team that was the last remaining unbeaten team in the league. And while they faltered in the second half of the year, I think they learned some valuable lessons. I think Kyler Murray has learned a lot this offseason, kind of like, wow, I really don't want to be in the spotlight for all these negative things. And I think we'll see Kingsbury fighting for his job. Kyler Murray obviously fighting for a contract. Who knows what his negotiations are like at the beginning of the season. I think the addition of Hollywood Brown, they no longer have – we'll see about James Conner. Can he stay healthy 2 years in a row? Yeah. I bet against it. But I think the over-under at 8.5 wins, asking the team to go 9-8, barely above 500 with all the talent they have, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's a good play. I can't really argue against it.
Yeah, let's transition into the NFC South. This is your division. So I want you to take it away. Buccaneers, Panthers, Falcons, Saints. Go.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at it. Buccaneers with the 11.5. Yeah, you can book them with like a solid 6 wins off the start. They should, or 5 wins. Fine. I'll give a divisional opponent maybe 1 win out of there. So I mean, come on. It's Tom Brady returning when he was supposed to be retired. Gave everyone in the NFC South a little bit of hope. Yeah. No, Tom Brady's back. Sorry, guys. Panthers sitting at 6. My Carolina Panthers sitting at 6. Yeah, sounds about right. I mean, a 6-win season is probably what we're in store for. We haven't addressed arguably the most important position, in the NFL, which is for sure quarterback. And I mean, Matt Corral, is he the answer? Probably not yet, right? His time's not supposed to come. They did improve the offensive line though, which I am, excited. You've spent that first-round pick to get an offensive lineman. Now I can officially say, Sam Darnold, it's do or die, right? This is your career this year. If you stink it up once more, you can kiss the NFL goodbye, because I don't know what team's going to take any more chances on you. Falcons at 5. That's interesting. The Falcons have some interesting, talent. Missing Calvin Ridley is why they're sitting at 5, though. Like where's the production going to come from? You need a big second year out of Kyle Pitts for sure. Saints at 8 is intriguing as well. Are the Saints going to luck into 9 wins? I could kind of see it. They play at such a great home field advantage. To me, the best bet in this division is Bucks over in wins, just because they're starting with so many favorable divisional opponents that it's like, they just got to win some of those, toss up out of conference type games.
Yeah, when I think about this division, I mean, the Bucks are minus 320 on FanDuel to win the division. So they're pretty certain. I mean, you can even just look at the win totals. One's at 11.5. The rest are 8, 6, and 5. Like they're not pretty high on any of all these 3 teams. And we're kind of starting from the bottom in terms of the Falcons. I'm curious what they do this year. Like the QB position, they got Marcus Mariota. What are they going to do? Who knows? Obviously, Matt Ryan now with the Titans, which we'll talk about them whenever we get to the AFC side of things, or not with the Colts when we get to the AFC side of things. I really don't know. I don't know what that team's going to do. Kyle Pitts is going to have to step up, put the team on his back, because they don't even have Russell Gage anymore. They signed a wide receiver or got someone. I forget who they got off the top of my head, but someone decent-ish. But, yeah, not too sold on that team. And then we move to the Panthers. I'm curious who gets more wins, your Panthers or my Jets, because I believe their team totals are 6. So maybe we'll talk about that at a later date. But Panthers, it is true. Sam Darnold, this is you're either going to play well this year or you're being backup QB, and you're going to have to deal with it. And I hope for your sake the Panthers are decent. I hope Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy, knock on wood, because
Please.
I know you love CMC, and I hope he's good for you. I hope he's a fantasy usable asset for people in fantasy football. The game's better with Christian McCaffrey out in the field, and without him, the Panthers are an eyesore to watch. And so I hope he's at least out there, and we'll see what Darnold does with the crew. But I'm excited you guys at least got some linemen to kind of improve that team. Well, you get 7 wins, maybe you luck into 2 against the Falcons, maybe a win against the Saints. That's 3, and then who knows? Maybe you cook up 4 other wins. We'll see. But when we talk about the Saints, interesting team. Bringing back Jameis Winston. Taysom Hill's doing who knows what. Don't have Sean Payton. Michael Thomas, I haven't heard anything about him. Is he healthy? Is he good? I literally have no idea. I took Michael Thomas in the first round of our fantasy football draft 2 years ago, and I murdered the man. So he's gone for good. I hope he's back because honestly, he's another guy that I love him or hate him. At least he puts up cool stat numbers. So he's at least someone you can look at on Sunday like, wow, this guy had 12 receptions for 84 yards. That's pretty cool. But still, the Saints have that great offense, which I think can hold them down. Obviously, they're playing in the Superdome, so that's going to give them some wins. And they're playing against Falcons and Panthers, so they'll look into some wins. But it's going to be interesting to see how this team transitions without Sean Payton. You saw Drew Brees' tweet that said, I might come back and play football. I don't see that happening at all. But he was just maybe a little salty that NBC kind of gave him the boot or whatever. But either way, whatever he can do. And then we think about the Buccaneers.
The Saints play well against the Bucs, though. Don't forget they have their number.
The Buccaneers, the Saints have the Bucs number. I don't think Tom Brady has beaten the Saints as a member of the Buccaneers. What he said, 0-for-4, and
that's true.
Most of the games haven't been close either. It's not like the Saints team was with Drew Brees every single time. It was all last year with Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. I remember that game was with Sunday Night Football. It was an absolute pillow fight because everyone was taking overs, and then it was just like punt, and it was just a miserable game to watch. But I think the Buccaneers, obviously the front runners in this division, Tom Brady, Mike Evans, they got Russell Gage, who I think will be underrated. Chris Godwin, interesting guy to monitor as he comes back from his ACL tear, but their offensive line's still dominant. I think Leonard Fournette's back. I don't know about Ronald Jones or his status, but it's the Buccaneers. It's Tom Brady. They'll figure it out, and they're just always drafting guys that become good. That's just what Tom Brady's teams do.
Don't bet against Tom Brady, right? I'm not going to bet a Tom Brady Buccaneers win total under. I'm going to bet the over, and I'm going to sleep fine at night knowing that I bet on Tom Brady. That's how it works. That's how you make money.
Exactly. Let's move on to the final division in the NFC, and then we'll talk about some other things. The NFC North with the Packers, Vikings, Bears, and the Lions. I'm going to start this one off. I think there's pretty good value on the Chicago Bears at 6.5. Now, call me crazy, but I think 6.5 is a low number for them. I think 7-10 is a reasonable season for them. Obviously, they got rid of Ryan Pace, or not Ryan Pace, their coach. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Matt Nagy.
Yes, Ryan Pace is their new general manager, I believe. But they got rid of Matt Nagy, and I think that's going to be nice. I think Justin Fields is really going to take a leap. We saw Justin Fields play awesome on Monday Night Footballs when he was getting thrown into there, and when they finally let him, open up the offense and said, Justin Fields, you can do what you're actually good at, instead of, hey, Justin Fields, you're a pocket passer now. That's not what he's good at. He's good at rolling and throwing the ball or making plays. And so I think the Bears at 6.5 is my most intriguing one here. Is there something that intrigues you, or what do you think about the Bears?
Okay, so the Bears is interesting, right? Because it's like, where's that year 2, growth or regression, right? Coming from the quarterback position, very important. I kind of agree with you. I do have a little bit of optimism, especially shipping Matt Nagy on. I mean, come on, man. He seemed like a hindrance a lot to that offense. It was like he was that you ever park illegally on the street and you see the cars with the boot on it, right? That's what he was. He was that yellow boot on the Bears offense, right? So he was always holding them back. I expect. Now, I'm not bold enough to say they're going to get 7 wins. I'm not going to do that. But I am bold enough to say that the Vikings sitting at 9, that number is too high. I just think we're always falling in love with Kirk Cousins. We're always falling in love. Well, maybe Kirk Cousins, but we're always falling in love with Jefferson, Thielen, and Dalvin Cook. And the problem is with a lot of these players, like, number one, it's injury. Hello. Like, has Dalvin Cook ever played a full, football season? I'm not even actually sure on that. Second, it's Kirk Cousins, right? When the lights shine the brightest, am I trusting Kirk Cousins with my money? All the time, when we were picking NFL last year, right? You and I felt okay always, fading Kirk Cousins because they're like, it's Kirk Cousins, right? It's, usually usually the Vikings got such a premium on them because of, they got the flashier players. They've got, players on offense that can light up the scoreboard. The problem is they just don't always, right? So I'm more inclined to take their under. I think the Packers are going to be a force of this division again. Love him or hate him, Aaron Rodgers is great in the game. Missing Devontae Adams, though, right? That's a storyline we could talk about right there. The fact that the win total is sitting at 11, though, clearly I guess the odds makers are like, he impacts it, significantly, right? He's probably worth maybe 1.5 wins, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting guy that no longer have for Aaron Rodgers, who's had him for, the longest. And they tried to, replace him. They got Sammy Watkins. They went and who was the other guy they drafted? Christian Watson was the guy they drafted. I believe he's a rookie. They drafted a couple guys to try to kind of replace that. I know a lot of people, I believe, are high on Christian Watson, and we'll necessarily see how Sammy Watkins does. It's an interesting team because you're right. It's still Aaron Rodgers, so we'd still bet on him to get those 11 wins, maybe 12, especially in this division. I'm a little concerned, thinking back to my Bears pick that, they did lose Allen Robinson, did lose Khalil Mack. Now they did bring in a superstar wide receiver and Byron Pringle, so that'll certainly help the cause. He's at least worth 3.5 wins, but we love Byron Pringle on the channel. If someone knows Byron Pringle, let him know. We would love to talk to him one day.
Yes,
but I'm excited for this division. I think it's going to be the Packers taking it home. The Vikings, like you said, are a team everyone wants to bet. It's everyone. They go load up. They're on Sunday morning. They're like, you know what? I'm going to cook an NFL parlay up. You're like, all right, click. All right, 5 legs. I'm at plus 400 value. I want one more. Oh, the Vikings are playing the Lions. They're minus 250. Yeah, I'll throw them in there. Yeah. They just absolutely just lay an egg, and you're like, you just lost to the winless Lions. That's what the Vikings do. They lose those games. And I know people that are Vikings fans, and I hope that they maybe have a good year. I wouldn't be mad if the Vikings win. They have cool colors. But I just think at the end of the day, it's like you're trusting Captain Kirk. You're trusting a defense that honestly ain't much of a defense. And while Justin Jefferson's the beast, he puts up crazy numbers year in and year out. Adam Thielen's consistently getting older. Dalvin Cook's always injured. And Alexander Madison is the best handcuff that you can have in fantasy football.
True. I can't argue with the fantasy talk. I again, your point on the Vikings is so valid because, like I said, the motto for Kirk Cousins is just kind of a letdown, right? It's like when the lights shine the brightest, when you need that last leg of a parlay, I don't want it being Vikings. I just don't. So in this scenario, why would I bet their win total over when I haven't seen sustained success, right? Glimpses here and there, right? Does anyone remember the Case Keenum Vikings days, right? Like that, those were fun days. Can they get back to that point? Who knows? But I'm not sold on 9 wins yet.
Yeah, they're an interesting team that you kind of have to just watch out for. They win games, they shouldn't lose games. They should win, and that's just that's just the Vikings' nature of it. You just never know what you're going to get from the Minnesota Vikings any given Sunday, and that goes back to Kirk Cousins because he's quite unpredictable. They just gave him a contract extension, maybe like a 2-year kind of thing this offseason. So we'll see kind of what Kirk Cousins' future is after next year or two in Minnesota. But it's just, it is what it is. Now, that's all the divisions we talked about. I'm curious if we have any Super Bowl or not Super Bowl MVP lines. Have you have any MVP prediction, a little dark horse that you're feeling this year?
Ooh, for NFL, I'd have to pull it up. I want you to go first. I want to have a somewhat thoughtful pick.
I think about MVP. I'm gonna go, and this is a tough one. It's a tough one. I'm pulling up the odds right now. Josh Allen's plus 700. He seems like the given. It seems like the guy that he's been so close to pulling it off. Josh Allen, that is, to finally get it done. I would kind of lean with the public on that one. I think Josh Allen gets it. I just think Patrick Mahomes might struggle with that division. He's Patrick Mahomes plus 900. Justin Herbert plus 1,000. I don't see Herbert having a chance at winning this. Everyone's all high on the Chargers, and maybe we'll talk about them in a couple weeks whenever we get to the AFC. Not too high on that team. Rodgers plus 1,000. No chance Rodgers gets 3 in a row unless like the Packers are 14-3 or something ridiculous, which I don't see happening. Tom Brady's plus 1,000. An interesting one is Russell Wilson at plus 1,400. I wouldn't bet that. I'm not too high on Russell Wilson, but I would lean Josh Allen for safety plus 700. I also think a guy like Jonathan Taylor probably has great value at plus 5,000. Now, obviously, it's hard for Jonathan Taylor to duplicate or, it's hard for running backs when they have one big year to kind of have, that first year is that like, wow, this guy is like insane and he gets some MVP votes. But then to do it 2 years in a row, it's kind of like, oh, we've seen this before. Kind of like we think about the NBA when Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double or something like that. Like people were so impressed the first year, and then they did it for a second year or third year, and people were kind of like, oh, well, you keep doing that. We're not going to keep voting for you. So I think Jonathan Taylor has a chance. Him and Derrick Henry both plus 5,000 odds. So if I had to throw a dart throw, I'd say Jonathan Taylor. He has a little bit worse odds than Matt Ryan, but honestly, I think at the end of the day, I don't think Matt Ryan wins the award if the Colts are good. I think Jonathan Taylor does, and the guy's a beast. They finally don't have Carson Wentz there, and we know Matt Ryan's capable of throwing to running backs, and so I think Jonathan Taylor might be in for another big year. They don't have to – teams aren't going to be loading the box saying, you know what, Carson Wentz beat us. They're going to be like, Matt Ryan is a respectable QB. They still have talent on the outside, and so I think Jonathan Taylor plus 5,000 is pretty good odds for me. Crazy to see Marcus Mariota at plus 6,000 odds. So the fact that you basically get them for almost the same odds, I have no idea. But yeah, like Jonathan Taylor plus 5,000. If I wanted a safe bet, I'd go Josh Allen plus 700. It just feels like he's due an MVP. Very similar to like I like Joel Embiid. That's probably due one. Maybe Joel gets it next year.
I first of all, I agree with every single thing you've said about Josh Allen. Having me question it if I want to play some right after we hang up this podcast, because I mean, plus 700 is just so tempting, right? It's a narrative award, right? For sure. Josh Allen is right on the cusp of that superstardom, right? He's kind of the face of the league, essentially. I mean, everybody wants to bet the Bills. Everyone wants to, ride Bills Mafia. They're obviously a great team, great success last year. And that offense runs a lot through him. Running the ball, Bills never heard of it. Josh Allen will definitely put up great stats. He plays in a division that I don't see giving him a ton of like defensive resistance. Jets, they're going to get steamrolled by the Bills offense. Patriots may be formidable, but you always get brownie points for beating Belichick. And then, I mean, Dolphins defense is probably one of those defenses. We'll talk about it when we talk about the AFC, but I think they're doing a little bit of regression. Josh Allen's a great pick, right? I cannot knock you there. I'm just scrolling this list, looking at value. And I mean, I love the call that you just made with saying that a running back has value. Cause this is, I mean, all you do is you see on this list, it's straight up quarterbacks. And I think, and call me crazy. I know, well, this one's not that crazy, but I think Lamar Jackson at plus 2,000, just simply because of what he can do. And it kind of seems like Lamar Jackson's kind of he's kind of got something brewing with him, right? He just watched them ship out, Hollywood Brown on draft night. And he was just sitting there probably, the Al Horford face that when Giannis dunked, he's like, like that. Yeah. That, I think we're going to see a sort of revenge season out of Lamar Jackson. I think that Ravens team is going to be definitely a team to watch out for. They're always well coached. And I mean, when you got players like Justin Tucker that can seal games for you, I always love the Ravens to be in contention. And Lamar Jackson probably will be one of those players that's like in the top 5 when it's all said and done. So at plus 2,000, it's like kind of worth, the value where it stands today. I like Lamar Jackson for sure. Being able to get it done, on the ground, obviously he's tremendous, but also, Mark Andrews, he has crazy chemistry with Mark Andrews, and he's still there. He'll definitely, make Lamar's stats look better than they could be. So I like Lamar Jackson at plus 2,000 where we stand today in May.
Yeah, when you said that, I was looking through the list. I was like, Lamar Jackson, pretty decent odds. He's plus 2,500 on DraftKings. Now, yeah, for all the reasons you said, the Hollywood, I feel like when we look at Lamar Jackson this year, it might give him, a very good, similar expression to kind of like a Nikola Jokic. Now, in the sense that where's his help? It's like he doesn't have a lot of good receivers. Rashad Bateman's solid. Devin Duvernay, James Prochet. Then Mark Andrews, like you said, obviously Mark Andrews, curious what his over-under for yards is, because the guy had 1,300, 1,400 yards last year. I think we're going to look at a guy in Lamar Jackson that's just going to put the team on his back this year. He's going to be a guy that's just going to do everything for him. And I think the Ravens will still be competitive. They still have a pretty decent defense, very capable of making turnovers. I'm curious exactly their running back depth, because J.K. Dobbins, I mean, we remember that Ravens team. They had no running backs by the end of the year.
Exactly.
Even by the middle of the year. By week 1, they had no running backs. Half their guys were already injured. J.K. Dobbins went down. Gus Edwards. They just signed Mike Davis, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm hopefully J.K. Dobbins is back. That gives Lamar another weapon. And you know what? When you're starting week 1 in New York, taking on the Jets. That's a great team to get a little first game up on. Just get a good stat pad and game. You're good to go. And I'm just saying, man, that's a pretty good schedule. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we see, if he can win. And we also have to think about the division, a very tough division. So if you can go out and beat teams like the Bengals, who just went to the Super Bowl, you can beat a team. The Steelers, we'll see about them. The sportsbook's not very high on the Steelers this year, but even the Browns with Deshaun Watson now, people are super high on this division. And if the Ravens come in here, win this division, win, 11, 12 games, then Lamar Jackson's going to be probably the large majority of that. I really do think that your Lamar Jackson call is pretty decent, plus 2,500. When I look at this, awards list in terms of like the first top 16 people with odds are all QBs. Would I rather bet on Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson at plus 2,500? Both the same. I'm going to lean Lamar Jackson. I mean, one, Deshaun Watson, we don't know his status, whether he's suspended some games. And two, it's like, sure, the Browns might have a better record. Who knows? They're not passing the ball. They're still going to keep spamming the run. I don't really know the Browns' status of their currently of their wide receiver room. I don't really know what they plan on doing so far.
Well, they got Amari Cooper in the offseason.
Yeah, besides Amari Cooper, besides him. Yeah. I don't really know what they're doing. Donovan Peoples-Jones, obviously Jarvis Landry just signed with the Saints. It's going to be a weird team. David Njoku got a big contract extension. I don't know what that team's going to be doing. Baker Mayfield, all that drama. I think the Browns are going to be a little bit worse than people expect them to be. I think people think, oh, Deshaun Watson's here. He's our savior. I mean, Deshaun Watson had decent teams in Houston. I mean, they weren't the best. This Browns roster is better than those, but still weren't that all that good. And so we'll see a lot of drama surrounding Deshaun Watson pretty much this whole year. I think he'll still have the drama circling him every game. Baker Mayfield, he ain't going anywhere at the moment. He's still going to have a lot of drama circling him. And so all of that concluded, I think Lamar Jackson plus 2,500, pretty decent odds. I'd much rather probably him over like a guy like Jalen Hurts at plus 1,800 odds. I just don't. The books are expecting Jalen Hurts, I guess, to have a great year. I mean, I'm a Jalen Hurts supporter. I'll support him. I thought he was pretty good last year. Well, till the playoffs, but golly, interesting odds that we're getting.
Well, you want, again, when you're picking MVP, you want somebody that's like gonna have the control of, taking hold of that division and just making it about them, right? As you just said, the ingredients are there for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens to just snatch that division, because there's not, to me, that dominant team like, the Tampa Bay Bucks, the Brady of their division. There isn't. So if he has a good statistical year and they maybe have a solid lead in that division, he'll be right up there. So that's kind of what we're saying. And I think, honestly, people listening to this, it's worth a dart throw, right? Like you make money on these future bets. Don't go waste it on somebody like a Derek Carr or like Kirk Cousins, or just someone on there with crazy odds. That's just, no, they're not going to become the MVP again. Lamar Jackson, former MVP as well. So, I mean, he's got it before. He's played at a high level before. It's worth it. I think we've given some pretty solid advice for the people. What do you think, Austin?
I think so too. I'm just looking at some other props to see. I'm looking at most rushing yards, most receiving yards.
Yeah,
these are very interesting. They got a lot of different lines out here. I'm curious once we get some lines in terms of what is it called? Some like actual players lines. Right now we only have a couple rookies in terms of like the wide receiver lines. I want you to give. Do you have a early dart throw in terms of Super Bowl? Who you think is going to take it away? On the spot.
Well, I think I might have said this a month or two ago on the podcast, but it is in the NFC. So like, I'll probably give you my NFC, like kind of just like not so obvious answer. And I think it might be the Dallas Cowboys. And you know what? I don't want the smoke. Yeah. I don't want the booze for picking, America's team and everything. But I just love what they did, in the offseason. I liked, I don't mind getting rid of Amari Cooper, right? I don't mind making this team about CeeDee Lamb. And in that second year, Dak Prescott had, that whole Cowboys team had a lot of distractions last year. And to me, they played somewhat well throughout the distractions. But then you have, Mike McCarthy, a lot of the time management stuff. Assuming that you can just cut a lot of the distractions and blunders, so to speak, in half. I think this is a Dallas team that's going to be a top, 2 to 3 seed within the NFC. And what do we know about the NFL? It's about getting hot at the right time. a la Cincinnati Bengals last year, right? The Bengals, if you would have told people that the Bengals would have been playing the Super Bowl last year, they would have called you insane. Now, the Cowboys, people might call you insane just because of their choking nature and the whole America's team accident waiting to happen, everything like that. But put all those biases aside, they're very talented and they could easily get there. So I'm just going to take a shot at the Cowboys. I think for the NFC, they're one of those not so obvious Bucks, Rams, Packers, type bets.
Yeah, when I'm looking at, I'll just talk about the NFC. We will talk about the AFC later. I'm looking at the value. It's tough for me to not go with the Rams, but it's almost like, what do the books know? Why are the Rams and the Packers plus 500 and the Buccaneers plus 320? It's like trying to bait you into some Rams action. I don't think the Rams are the move. I would not be surprised if I lean the Bucks, but I don't want to be a homer for them. So I think there's decent value on taking a team like the 49ers. I know I might have bashed them a little bit earlier. This is a team that I think wins when the time matters. And they're debating on Deebo Samuel's status for this. I think they could get back to at least the Super Bowl in this one. Like, obviously we don't know Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, but I think Trey Lance, might give them an extra added element. And I think their defense is good enough to keep them in games. The rushing game is just very solid. And I think there's question marks with the Bucks. How will Brady, continue to kind of go, like just keep going? I think you got the question marks with the Packers. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been able to get it done in the postseason. The 49ers beat them. And then you have a team like the Rams who, sure, they have all the talent in the world, but the fact that they're getting plus 500 odds and the fact that they are, they don't have Von Miller anymore, which I think is going to be a big loss for them. They got Bobby Wagner too, but I think the 49ers, I think the books are putting them at plus 750. We already talked about their win total here at 10. I think they're trying to throw me a bone. Say, Austin, the 49ers are the move. And I'm riding.
I told you there'd be some regression, but
yeah, no, you don't know nothing.
It's the heart of a champion, and I'm serious. When I was looking at that 49ers versus Packers playoff game, I just saw so many people with hearts and they were like dogs. They were just like straight up like cut from a different cloth. They made the Packers want to quit. They made the Packers look bad in Lambeau Field. So I'm not going to call you crazy at all for that, because I know that still resides in the 49ers. Who knows? They might catch fire at the right time as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to finish this podcast, can I have the floor for a second?
You may have the floor. Go for it.
A couple months ago, we were posed with a question from myself. It was to give a dark horse NBA Finals contender. And I have to at least take my victory lap now, because I said Dallas Mavericks plus 3,500 odds to win the NBA Finals. Right now, as of Tuesday, May 17th, you can find them at plus 700 odds. Now, will they beat the Warriors tonight on Wednesday night? Wouldn't bet on it. But you know what? You best believe I might as well take a mini victory lap now and say at least I'm doing pretty solid with my future bet. If the Mavs win it all, I don't know what I will do. I will go nuts. My futures ticket will cash. But I just wanted to give myself a little bit of praise because I do this.
I love it. I love Luka Magic too. I'm very excited to watch Luka in that series.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun one to watch. I'm excited. After this, I'm gonna have to go cook up my NBA video for that. So the people that have already watched that video, congrats! It's being recorded after this podcast. But any other closing thoughts for the NFL or the NBA playoffs?
Just seeing the week one spreads. We're not going to dissect them right now, but seeing these week one spreads and totals, it really is making me crave some football. But got a lot to wait. But at least listening to this, I hope people are gaining maybe some insight into like where there's at least value. Because if you're trying to beat the books, you have to beat them where there's value. And I mean, honestly, a futures bet is like it's like buying. It's investing in a stock, honestly. So
yeah, no, 100%. It's giving me goosebumps just looking at the lines and seeing all the NFL logos. Just like, ooh, Commanders -4 week 1 versus the Jags. Ooh, yeah, that's a smelly one. I'm excited to be cooking up those NFL videos. Looking forward to those. We obviously still got 3 months and a couple weeks before it, but it's going to be fun. We appreciate you guys for tuning into the weekly podcast. Next week, we should have our weekly guest back. And so if you guys ever want another weekly guest, let us know who you guys want to see so we can try to start reaching out to people, kind of line up them in the future. We appreciate you guys as always for listening to the weekly podcast. You can obviously watch our normal videos in the NBA and MLB every morning, but it's been Austin, it's been Logan, and we will catch you guys again next week for episode 37. This is episode 36. Let's get after it. See you guys next week.